A populist is a people's person. In the modern political lexicon, a populist is a supporter of the interests of ordinary people. Populists have been around for millennia, from Demosthenes, who won over the Athenians with his oratory, to Gaius Gracchus, who promised the citizens of Rome free bread. Some even argue that Jesus Christ was a populist, with his statements that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. A period oft referred to as the golden age of populism was the 1930s. Beyond Hitler and Mussolini, populist movements emerged in Portugal, Argentina, the United States, and Eastern Europe. These movements appealed to nationalism, economic recovery, religion, and a sense of injustice having been done. Today, many countries are seeing a populist surge reminiscent of the 1930s. Jean-Marie Le Pen, now retired, was a French right-wing politician. He served in the French military after World War II in Vietnam and Algeria. After returning to civilian life, Jean-Marie Le Pen founded the political party known as the National Front. Recently, Jean-Marie's daughter, Marine Le Pen, took over the party. As the leader, she has worked to legitimize the National Front with mainstream voters, expelling anti-Semites from the leadership, including her father. The main issues for the National Front today are involvement in the European Union and immigration. Should the National Front ever take control of the French government, their policy would be to immediately exit the Eurozone, saying that the high value of the euro hurts French businesses that export goods outside of Europe. Negotiations with the European Union as to whether concerns about the Schengen Free Trade Area, in which people and goods can move freely, could be addressed would take place for 6 months, after which it is likely that a Frexit would commence. The National Front is also concerned with migration, specifically of refugees, whether from Eastern Europe or Syria, who take jobs away from French people. Another major concern is terrorism. A spate of awful attacks has hit France in recent years, and the National Front is riding the political backlash. The United States is also experiencing a surge in support for populists. While Donald Trump was the victorious populist, another had a great influence on the recent presidential election. Senator Bernie Sanders is a left-wing populist, in contrast to Marine Le Pen. He mainly advocates for economic justice and social equality. Bernie Sanders' idea of economic reform is gearing the economy to serve the common man. The upper middle class and sometimes the poorest would have been left out. By repealing free trade agreements, Bernie would have increased employment but hurt consumers by raising prices. This would have hurt the lowest socioeconomic strata as well as the rich he railed against. Economic justice in Bernie Sanders' worldview is redistribution of wealth from the upper echelons to the lower echelons. Breaking up the banks, busting trusts, and raising progressive taxes are also integral to his economic program. Bernie Sanders also stands for civil liberties, which in his ideological view are constrained by a government corrupted by corporate interests beyond the control of the people.
This is what a rigged economy and a corrupt campaign finance system and a broken criminal justice system is about. These guys are so powerful that not one of the executives on Wall Street has been charged with anything after paying, in this case of Goldman Sachs, a $5 billion fine.
Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, is also a populist politician. India is a former British colony. In 1947, it was partitioned between the new states of India and Pakistan. Since the partition, India and Pakistan have fought several wars, and the rivalry between the nations has become particularly intense now that they dispute territory in Kashmir and both have nuclear arsenals. Prime Minister Modi's populist platform is based on Hindu nationalism in juxtaposition to Pakistani Islam. This populism is less about economic or social justice. If anything, Modi is pro-business, but of a circle-the-wagons mentality similar to the policy of the National Front. In India, the government funds Hindu religious institutions and has started infringing on the rights of its Muslim citizens. The way the Prime Minister serves the common man is by protecting him from the Muslim minority. Populism today is defined by two characteristics: economic justice for the dispossessed and defense against an external threat. Economically, to help the people, that is, the majority, the minority is dispossessed. This can be a religious group, as in Nazi Germany and modern India, or it can be the wealthy elite, as in Bernie Sanders' imagination. This often means new progressive taxes and protectionism benefiting domestic labor and hurting large business owners. The other main tenet of populism is a circle-the-wagons mentality. The phrase originates in the Wild West when settlers would literally circle their wagons to create a barricade from which they could fire at attackers. When the people feel threatened, they look to protect themselves from other groups, whether they be Jews, migrants, or Muslims, and they look to populists to create that barricade.
Total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Populism is on the rise, and we need to both come to terms with and understand this resurgent political ideology.